Joining us for our FY24 budget deliberations. It's July 14th, 2023. The time is 2 p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Matari, Brooks, and Duncan. Are there changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead with our continuation of FY24 budget briefs. And Finance Director Brandy Falcon, would you like to lead us?
Yes, Brandy Falcon for the record. So we'll start off with the preliminary summary. It's been 2 weeks since we had a meeting, so we have had some changes, updates to some liquor revenues, adding the longevity pay for the deputy matrix. And I did separate out public defense on its own because this is just a unique situation that we're in for FY24. Public defense is all, we can just think of it as supported through state revenues now. So I did not want any savings incurred from cutting their open positions to go towards balancing the county, rest of the county budget, because those savings will not be incurred in property tax supported funds. I'll just say that. So once we pull them and all of their expenses and savings out, we are sitting at $94,000 ahead in revenues over expenses. So that includes the 4.5% COLA for the county matrix. That includes bringing elected officials to market. That includes cutting funding on open positions by 50% if they have been vacant over 100 days. That includes giving steps to all employees on their step anniversary date, which is their time and position date. And that also includes the new 5-year matrix for patrol that is within 3% of Coeur d'Alene. And then command staff has been adjusted accordingly to stay a certain percentage above patrol, and all based on direction from the sheriff's office. And finally, that includes the money needed to fix steps for employees that have been here a long time that are at the wrong step. So I wanted to jump into A budget first. I printed off the draft proposed FY24 matrix for you to see, just so you're seeing the matrix that we're talking about and that you will be discussing. So it has included a 4.5% COLA for the whole county, like I said. It includes that new matrix for patrol and then the longevity pay. I wanted to talk a little bit just about how the matrix and these increases would work. So the county matrix, the COLA and people's step corrections would be effective September 24th. That is the first day of the first full pay period, or of the first paycheck employees are going to get in October. So those two things have to happen on the same day in order for employees to be getting the right amount. So that would be effective 9/24, and then all of the regrades and reclasses that have been requested would be effective on October 8th, which is the first day of the first full pay period in FY24. And that is just something that we have to work with IT on and HR on what our system is capable of doing on certain days. And just to be very clear, employees' annual steps, like I said, occur on their step anniversary date. And it's important to remember that it's the date that happens after the beginning of the new fiscal year. So after 10/1/23, then the steps will take effect. Nobody's getting a step in September of 2023. And then requests for new FTEs would take effect as of October 1st. And then as far as the requirements for getting an anniversary step, HR would work with the board to make sure that there's some sort of requirement in place that an employee cannot be on a performance improvement plan, like an underperforming employee, and get a step. And that's just something that the county has always done. You can't get a retention bonus if you're underperforming and you're on an improvement plan. That's something HR would bring forward. And then lastly, the employee anniversary steps are effective for the entire pay period in which the step occurs. So we're not prorating a step for the days of the pay period, it's for the entire pay period. Now specifically for the new matrix for patrol and command staff. Again, this would be effective 9/24. Like I said, the patrol deputies are within 3% of Coeur d'Alene. Command staff has been adjusted accordingly to keep them a certain percentage above the deputies based on direction from the sheriff's office. Again, their steps would occur on the anniversary date. Now to be eligible for longevity pay, that is measured against their hire date. how many years total they've been with the sheriff's office. So at the beginning of the year, they will all get placed on the right step according to time and position, and then longevity pay, they'll be placed there if they qualify. So once you're on 15 years, obviously you have to wait another 5 years till you go to 20, so on and so forth. The longevity pay is 15, 20, and 25 years at 3, 4, and 5% increases. This is obvious, but I do want to state it for the record. Steps are not automatic for regular or sworn employees. They have to be funded every year by the county commissioners. Just because we approve a matrix 1 year doesn't mean employees are guaranteed a step for the next 5 or 7 years. And like I said, longevity pay is based on looking at hire date. So that is just an overview of the proposed matrix. If you have no other questions, I wanted to go into the personnel summary.
Questions? Questions, Bill?
No, thank you.
Okay. So on the personnel summary, there's still a couple of items that are left to be decided on. Since we last met, the sheriff's office did have me cut the requests for new patrol deputy positions down to 2 funded at 50% with no car included in the onboarding costs. So if you all are okay with that, we can mark that as approved, keeping those 2 positions in funded at 50%, or if you still wanted to look at any cuts for those.
Where are we at with negotiations with Hayden?
Final negotiations, as we near them, currently at $1,077,197.
Okay, so is that 1
Right now,
million
we have $1
included in-
million budgeted, so I'll go in and increase by about 77,000.
Okay. Then I'm fine with keeping both positions in 50%.
Yeah, part of it too is just there's a number of open positions to begin with that have to be filled. So these are really like the last 2 positions.
Sure.
And if there's any training, then they wouldn't be ready for a card till FY25.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna mark those as approved. We had marked the airport's overtime request as a potential cut, but it has not been taken from the budget. Obviously, there's the on-call pay that needs to be discussed or decided on. Are you guys ready to have that discussion today?
Well, I think we would need to adopt a policy, and so, which obviously is going to take a little bit more time. I do have a draft policy at this point. I mean, just the bottom line issue is, if you have a policy, then you have to offer it countywide. So that is just going to increase the amount of money we're going to need ongoing to do this for the 10 departments that have people on call. So that's been kind of the issue all along is, you know, can we just grant it for 3 departments because they asked for it and nobody else?
And I was kind of under the impression that there was 2 departments that they have to be on call to preserve crime scene evidence and things like that, which is a little bit different than other on-call type statuses.
But the on-call people still have to respond in a decent amount of time. And if you have flooding in this building and Greg's people say, well, we're not preserving evidence, so we'll get there when we feel like it, then we're going to incur potentially $1 million in damage. So I understand the evidence issue, but on-call is on-call. We wouldn't have people on call if it was not absolutely necessary to have people come to, you know, take care of whatever could be potentially causing damage.
Well, I think, you know, obviously we can't talk outside of these meetings, so if you have a draft policy, I'd like to take a look at it and, you know, we can visit that and maybe continue that discussion.
Okay.
And Robert Norris,
I'm sorry, can we just get through this for a second and then we'll,
well, you make a comment about a flood, so I'm hoping you have contingency plans in the event that your people are not available. We have plumbers in the event that our maintenance staff is not available. So I certainly hope that if your maintenance staff is not available, you would have a plumbing contractor that is available.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're
All
welcome.
right, next.
Okay, so I'm just gonna leave the on-call ones as open. Monday is our final budget deliberation meeting, so hopefully so they're in the budget now, so unless 2 out of 3 commissioners say no, they're gonna stay in the budget. We'll just leave it at that. So they're gonna stay in the budget, and then Monday, hopefully, there's a decision that can be made. Next is the reorg requests from RMO. That's a total of 5 of them. I know that we have been wanting to wait on a finalized process for grants, which may or may not involve job descriptions and grade evaluations. If that's something that's still being worked on, we can remove it from the FY24 budget and then bring it forward mid-year FY24 if needed. I just don't know, do you want to keep this in the budget now or remove it?
I would be comfortable removing it with the understanding that the process is still going to go forward. And once the process is in place, then we can go back and look at this. Because right now, the way it's presented, it's pretty budget neutral. And therefore, it's not going to cause a big issue if it's done after the budget's in place.
Right, like
So-
done mid-year FY24.
Correct. Yeah. Well, you say mid-year, but sometimes people think that's April.
Sorry, when I say mid-year, I mean any time during
Outside-
FY24.
Right, so that's just the clarification I'm
Right,
making is,
okay.
yes, anytime after October 1.
After 10/1, yep.
Yeah, exactly. So we could even get the work done and have it effective as 10/1 as well. But I think
Okay.
for now, in order to get the balanced budget and to clear up anything, I would be comfortable taking it out.
I would agree.
Okay, I'm gonna mark those then as cuts. Okay, more on-call pay. And the last outstanding one was the requested regrade for the OEM position.
I think that one's appropriate at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Matari or Bill Brooks, any thoughts?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, I'll mark that as approved. So those were the only, unless you wanted to do further discussion on anything that's already been marked as approved, is there any further discussion or cuts you wanted to discuss on the personnel requests?
I guess the only thing, I never saw the information that I had asked for the assessor's position,
The the new FTE?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. But, Bruce met with him, so I'm basing it on that. I guess my question to the assessor would be, has anyone in your department, said to you that they don't need that position or they don't believe you need that position? Or is there any, or you have staff saying that, we need this position?
Or another way, are you busting at the seams and people are overwhelmed, they're staying late, and that this other person is really going to relieve, this overworked situation? Or is it more of a, it would help, but it's, if push came to shove, we could revisit it next year.
Commissioners, Bailiff Kovacs, Assessor. To Commissioner Duncan, no. To Commissioner Matari, yes. So, no, nobody has said we do not need it, the position. That has not happened. At least no one said that to me. And to Commissioner Matari, yes, I have my front staff, and we are busting at the seams especially with the changes. So, yeah, and I did provide the information to Bruce Matari. I apologize if I misunderstood. If you wanted me to send something to you, I did do that.
Yeah.
It's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so unless you have further questions or discussion on A budget, for B budget, obviously very detailed. If there's something specific that you want to discuss or consider cutting, we can talk about that. I have marked the ones that you've listed as potential cuts. That would be the chamber memberships, the $20,000 to the Museum of North Idaho, and I believe those are the only 2 that I had marked down as potential B budget cuts. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss in B budget?
I think we kind of just need to talk about those two things. Well, Chamber, Museum, Coeur d'Alene Economic Development, and I thought there was, the fourth one being NACO, but I think that we can do NACO out of fund balance. It's one-time only, non-recurring issue. So where are you at with those?
Well, pretty much from where I was before, which is I consider these to be the very, very, very last things to talk about.
Okay,
After we've addressed all the other issues, whether it's A budget, B budget, or C budget.
so that's Monday.
Yeah.
So is something going to change over the weekend?
Well, I think we still have a couple other issues here that, and you're going to give your personnel policy draft, so I think that it would be prudent
Okay,
Okay.
unless, unless you have a different thought on that.
okay. Asa?
Commissioners, could I just make a quick comment here? Our department, Elections Department, is pulling about $30,000 worth of requests of that non-capital equipment items that will be coming forward to you this fiscal year for, since we don't have an August election, out of our B budget ask for next year. So that is out of here as well.
Okay, so is that reflected
That,
in the
yes,
summary?
thank you, Asa. That has already been cut.
Okay, so that's reflected. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so I guess those we will wait until Monday.
Okay, and Coeur d'Alene Economic Development is not in the budget right now?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, we'll leave those until Monday. And then lastly is C budget. Obviously, there are still the ones that you guys had marked as potential cuts. Right now, we are levying $2 million in one-time purchases to help offset the extra interest revenue we have this year. Are there any further cuts or discussion that you wanted to have over capital purchases? The airport did tell me that they are bringing forward their $22,000 request to a business meeting to request to utilize their restricted sewer fund balance in FY23 for that project. So obviously, if that's approved, I will take that out of here. That will not affect the bottom line because it's funded with their own restricted fund balance. I did talk to Carlene about her $17,500 request. She said that she requests that every single year because there's multiple that need to be replaced. So she said if she were to buy one in FY23, she still wants to buy another one in FY24. And she didn't, was unable to really say that her budget could absorb another one in FY23.
Okay, so that's fine. I guess the only thing at this point, I'm not real comfortable with the large transport vehicle and then the fourth vehicle for detectives, but, whatever the board wants to do on those.
Yeah, if it wasn't because it was a one-year-long lag time between order and delivery, and it was something that we could just order and have it within, 1 or 2 months at most, I would tend to agree with you on that. But because of that lead time and the fact that we know that it's difficult to get vehicles as it is. So, that a 1 year could turn into 1.5 or 2 years.
Or none.
So I would propose that we definitely keep that.
Okay, Bill?
Sometimes that turns into 0. We've had that happen too with vehicles we've ordered.
So keep it.
Okay, that's C budget. And so I guess I want to hear from you. Is there anything else, A, B, or C budget that you want to discuss cutting or changing or increasing? Any further discussion on what is in the budget right now?
I guess, unfortunately, I have my lovely notes for today, and they are not here, so they're probably somewhere between my desk and the bottom floor. So, elected officials, where are we at with that market? Because I understand that there's some maybe disagreement on what market we're using or what we should be using.
Right now, it's budgeted $135,000, and that is the cost to bring our elected officials to market, and market is defined as the market in our wage study.
The 22 wage study.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's disagreement, I would have to hear that from somebody else. I'm not really in tune with that.
Okay.
Well, real quick, the study, I believe, includes Spokane County.
That's what I understand.
And Bonner
Yeah.
County?
Yes.
And anything else?
Sylvia Proud for the record. For the elected officials, because it's a county function to have elected officials of this nature, it was Ada, Bonner, Canyon, and Spokane counties only. No municipalities, because it's not an appropriate match for a market study.
And what did you find?
So based on the 2022 study, we found elected officials anywhere from a little over 8% below market to as high as 19.5% below market. And that was back in 22 for the 23 year. And so for fiscal year 23, the elected officials got a 6% adjustment. And the staff were brought to market.
You know, my only concern with Spokane is I realize that they're local to here, but they really have a different form of government. So I'm not so sure that it's a apples to apples comparison. You know, one of the things I always try to look at is responsibility versus job title. You know, what is the responsibility? And so I would propose, if we're going to have a discussion, that discussion be about the process that the board uses and figuring out what a fair and equitable process is to determine, you know, when we look at these things. What triggers that process, and then what process do we use? And whatever that comes out to, I think I'm certainly fine with. But it would be prudent, I think, for us to at least have that.
Yeah, I would agree. So if anybody can do a calculation by Monday on taking Spokane out of that mix, that might help. For me personally, philosophically, you run for this position knowing how much it pays. COLA's appropriate. You don't want to go backwards because you left your business, your job, maybe you're retired, I don't know. But I would support a COLA. I would not support going to market at this point. I do understand, you know, Commissioner Matari's philosophy of paying a person for the job they're doing. However, I believe elected officials are a little bit different because they volunteer for this and it's public service.
Yeah.
So I consider it more of a public service thing than a way to get rich or, you know, something like that. So that's
Well,
my.
I agree with that conceptually, except the problem here is that we don't have a process in place. So when the board gave themselves a raise from 70 to 90,000, what was the mechanism that triggered that? What was the process that was used to determine to go from 70 to 90? You know, was it executive fiat, or was it, you know, we're now X dollars, or there's been so many years since we've looked at something? And that, I think, is part of the problem, is that, you know, it's not that as so much I believe people should get paid fairly, but this board is given the authority to set the pay for all the other elected officials. And I don't believe we should put ourselves in a situation where, depending on what side of the bed we wake up, we're going to determine whether or not we're going to evaluate salaries for other elected officials. I think a good process in place will drive that. And then we don't have to worry about anything other than, is there the money? Now, if the money's not there, I don't believe we should have that conversation in any way, shape, or form for the elected officials. But what I don't think we should have is some process that focuses more on fiat and less on, you know, what would be driving this. And that's my concern. I agree with the public service point. If we come up with a process where our pay ends up being $25,000 a year, I'm okay with that, as long as that process works year in and year out. But what I don't want is it to be, well, this year I feel like it should be this, and next year I feel like it should be that. Because, you know, if that's the case, then what is our process for other decision making? You know, what are we using to base our decisions on? And that's the part that I just want to make sure I understand. It's my first year on the board. And so I rely upon my contemporaries here to help illustrate, you know, what it is that we use to make these determinations.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's, you know, fair process. I've never voted for an elected official raise except for COLAs. So that's kind of my process.
Well, you know, I guess then the question is, you know, maybe we should revisit some of the other elected official raises in the past and see if they were over what they should have been because they went past the COLA.
Well, I think it was based on the wage study is where the number came up, so.
Okay, well, then there's a wage study, so the next question is what triggers us using or getting a wage study and then actually implementing that?
The policy, county policy says every 2 to 3 years we'll do a wage study,
Okay, and so when was the last wage study done?
2022.
Okay, so
And
we're,
we implemented it in '23. Yeah.
I think it's very important that we pay people for the responsibility they have. And being an elected official in Kootenai County should not be a sacrificial endeavor. Because when you do that, you get the saints and you get the sinners. That is to say, you get the people who really will do it for nothing because they know it should be done. And you get the other side of the coin. They do it because that's the most money they've ever made. And we shouldn't be in either camp. We should be being paid commensurate with what we do and also with what other counties are paying their elected officials. And I don't care how we arrive at that. I don't think it's terribly difficult.
All right, so I'll work on a calculation then that does not include Spokane County, is what it sounds like.
Is that-
I think we should just look at it a couple different ways. I mean, I'm not really concerned about your calculation until the board can at least agree on what makes sense, and how to go about it, and then we can give you that number. I mean, I think there's a number of different ways to look at it. And just real quick, Sheriff, you look at the different counties. I mean, Ada has 2,106 employees or slots for them. Canyon has 880. I thought we were at 850, but apparently Kootenai County, which is a smaller county than Canyon, has about 935 slots, which makes me really want to know why do we have so many more people in our county government than the next biggest county. And so, I've said this before, I believe that we need to take care of the people first. And if there's enough left over for the elected officials, we should definitely take care of them as a board, not us as the other elected officials. And then, we need to look, which I hope next year will be more towards technology, more towards getting more out of the people that we have, and whittling down some of these positions, because I don't understand how Canyon County is doing this with about 5%, I would say, less.
They do have a
People.
different demographic, though. Our demographics are quite different. We have an aging population compared to them. They have more industry. I mean, there's some significant differences
Well,
between us and them. I
You're
mean,
right.
just to,
And we're a destination resort place too. So, but I definitely would like to get a pencil to that. And I can, Mr. Sheriff.
Robert Norris, Sheriff. Was the elected official pay included in that 2022 pay study?
Yes, it was. In the study, it was, and that would be one of my questions for the board. On the numbers that you want with Spokane County out of it, do you want the market information or do you want current 23 information? Because that's pulled from IAC. So that's your choice, but it was. Elected officials were in it.
I mean, what I've kind of looked at is a reasonable percentage below the closest county that we have. Ada is much bigger, and the next smallest one is Bonneville, which is a lot smaller. So I was thinking something along the lines of a reasonable percentage below Canyon, probably, because they have roughly the same responsibility and so forth. But that's up to the board to decide.
So for these numbers from the other counties, the wage study is 22?
Correct.
And then we can also look at their 23 wages from the data they submit to IAC. Would you like us to do an analysis on the most recent 2023 wages that are out there? Or do you want to use the older 22 wages that are in the wage study?
Bill?
2023, you have the most current information we can.
Bruce?
I think we should have the most current. We can always go down. We can go up or down, but I think we should have current numbers to make decisions.
You have direction.
Okay, and I just wanted to be clear, I know this is what you said, but just a clarification, the 935 or 15, I don't remember, that's number of positions. So that's gonna include the 800 and some 50, whatever employees that we have, plus our open positions, so. That doesn't include, does include opens. I forgot to mention earlier, all of these wage things we're talking about, right now, we're budgeting 3.9 million total in increases. Last year, we did, it was 8 million, once we took out the open positions, 6 million net in wage increases. So I will work with HR on that for the electeds. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss today?
Trying to remember what my note said. That was one of them. Yeah, I understand that the backup for the sheriff's matrix isn't done yet as well, so the undersheriff and I he'll let me know when that's finished. So, it's the certification for the steps.
Okay, yeah, the requirements to go to the next step.
Correct. Yep.
So our next last budget meeting is going to be Monday from 2 to 4. That Monday morning at 10:30, we do have a presentation from Alliant on their projected budgeting for us for next year for health insurance. I believe we're still projecting a zero, just a zero increase for next year, but we'll hear more from them on Monday.
Yes, that's correct. PMR's numbers will be adjusted a little bit based on the economy and inflation, but word I got from Scott was that it was reasonable.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Chief Deputy Treasurer.
You pulled Spokane out, so I don't have to tell you what I was going to tell you.
Okay, thank you.
And then, so Monday is our last deliberation meeting. It's 2 hours long. At the end of that meeting, we'll arrive at a balanced budget. So it's okay if you've made all the decisions and the cuts you want to. 2 out of 3 commissioners pretty much are in agreement with where the budget is at. If we still have excess revenue over expenses, I'm comfortable publishing a budget that has higher revenues and expenses. We'll put that revenue, we'll just call it in a wage pool. That gives us the flexibility. By statute, we publish, and then after that, we're not allowed to increase our property tax amount. But we can still make small adjustments to other revenue and expense streams. So that protects, we've given ourselves the best levy amount we can. And then after that, if you want to cut, you can. With that extra revenue, you can still make some final decisions up until we adopt the budget. But it's okay that we publish with a little extra revenue in a wage pool. So if that's where we're at by the end of the meeting on Monday, we'll be good to go. I'll present the balanced budget on August 1st. I'll publish it, and we'll go from there.
Okay. And just FYI, I'll try to be on time on Monday, but I do have a 1 o'clock Basin Commission interview that I have to chair. So I'll get here as soon as I can after that. So,
We will wait.
excellent. All right. Jonathan, anybody on the line? Okay. Public comments? I see charities in the audience. No? Okay. 2:33, meeting adjourned. Thank you.